In a small, picturesque village hidden among rolling hills, life moved at a pace as steady as the seasons. Here, in the simplicity of nature and tradition, 16-year-old Aisha dared to dream of a life far beyond her surroundings. Her village was a quiet place, with dirt roads winding past stone cottages and fields of wheat swaying in the breeze. But Aisha's dreams were loud, vivid, and impossible to ignore. She envisioned herself walking the corridors of a grand university, where she would learn how to heal people and bring knowledge back to her village. It was a dream born from watching her father's struggles with chronic pain and the lack of proper healthcare in their rural community. However, one monumental barrier stood in her way. She had to learn English, a language barely spoken in her village and taught sparingly at her school. Aisha's father, a farmer with rough hands and a gentle heart, didn't understand her ambitions. "What's wrong with our life here?" he would ask. "We have food, shelter, and our family. Why reach for things that aren't meant for us?" Her mother, while slightly more supportive, also feared Aisha would be setting herself up for disappointment. Yet, Aisha refused to let their doubts dampen her determination. Her only solace came from Reza, her best friend and confidant. Reza was an artist with a soul as vibrant as the colors he used in his sketches. While Aisha dreamed of curing illnesses, Reza dreamed of painting the world beyond their village. They often sat by the riverbank, where Reza sketched images of far-off places described in the outdated magazines they scavenged from the school library. Aisha would tell him about her plans, and he would listen with an intensity that made her feel unstoppable. One day, while browsing those magazines, Aisha stumbled upon an article about a scholarship program that funded rural students to study abroad. The requirements seemed almost insurmountable: an outstanding academic record, a passion for change, and fluency in English. Aisha had the first two but lacked the third. Yet, something inside her whispered that she could do it. Without access to formal language classes, Aisha crafted her own method of learning. Every morning, she woke before dawn to visit the village library, where the only computer with internet access was available. There, she watched free tutorials and downloaded practice worksheets. She repeated phrases until they became second nature, her voice echoing softly through the quiet library. Reza, noticing her exhaustion, began joining her study sessions, offering moral support and keeping her spirits high with his humor. "If you can learn English, maybe I should try French," he joked one day. "Then we'll be truly international." Over time, their friendship deepened. Reza's encouragement turned from casual remarks to heartfelt compliments. He drew sketches of Aisha standing in a university courtyard, holding a diploma, and beamed with pride at her progress. Aisha, too, found herself noticing the small gestures Reza made, like walking her home in the dark or leaving his sketches at her door as motivation. Months turned into a year. Aisha had completed the scholarship application, pouring her heart into an essay that detailed her dreams and the struggles of her community. When the acceptance email finally came, she couldn't believe her eyes. She had been chosen. Her dream was within reach, but with her triumph came an ache she hadn't anticipated. The scholarship required her to leave the village, perhaps for years. She would have to say goodbye to her family, the only home she had ever known, and Reza. In the days leading up to her departure, Aisha tried to focus on her packing, but her heart was heavy. Reza noticed her sadness and suggested one final visit to the river. Under a sky scattered with stars, they sat in silence, the weight of unspoken words between them. "I always knew you'd make it," Reza finally said, his voice steady but laced with sadness. "You're meant for great things, Aisha. Don't let anyone make you think otherwise." Tears welled up in Aisha's eyes. "I'll miss you," she whispered, her voice breaking. Reza smiled faintly and handed her a small sketchbook. "Here," he said. "Something to remember me by." Aisha flipped through its pages, each one filled with drawings of their favorite memories together: the river, the library, their shared dreams. The final page was a sketch of Aisha wearing a graduation cap, her face radiant with joy. "Thank you," she said, hugging him tightly. "For everything." As the village faded into the distance on the day of her departure, Aisha clutched the sketchbook tightly, promising herself she would honor both her dream and the love Reza had shown her. Life in the city was overwhelming at first. The university was vast and filled with people from every corner of the world. Aisha's English improved rapidly, and she immersed herself in her studies, but the ache of homesickness lingered. She wrote letters to her family and often drew sketches of her own, inspired by Reza's gift. Years later, Aisha graduated with honors and became a doctor, fulfilling the dream that had driven her through endless nights of study. Yet, thoughts of Reza never left her. She often wondered if he had pursued his own dreams or if he remained in the village, sketching scenes of a life they had both imagined. One day, as she walked past a bookstore in the city, a familiar illustration in the window caught her eye. It was a painting of a small village under a starry sky, signed by Reza. Her heart skipped a beat. Aisha entered the store, bought the book, and smiled through tears as she flipped through its pages. Though their paths had diverged, their shared dreams had carried them to places they once thought impossible, and in that moment, Aisha knew that no matter where life took them, they would always carry a piece of each other, like the stars they had once admired together.